Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing exactly that, a deep dive into some really powerful ancient texts. We're looking at excerpts from the book of Jeremiah, specifically chapters 7 through 9.
All right.
Think of it as us trying to get to the heart of, a really crucial moment in the history of Judah.
Exactly. And what we have here are, the direct words attributed to the Lord, spoken through Jeremiah the prophet. And he's talking to everyone, the people, their leaders, the priests, even other prophets. It's like a full picture of a society really facing a crisis.
Yeah. And our mission, our goal here is to try and understand what those core messages were, why they were given back then, and what they tell us about that society. Maybe even about human nature, things that still resonate today.
Looking for those key insights, yeah.
Exactly, those aha moments across the centuries. So let's just dive right in, starting in chapter 7. And this message Jeremiah is supposed to give right at the temple gate.
Okay. So the very first thing is pretty striking. Jeremiah is told, stand right there at the entrance to the temple.
The main gate.
The main gate, yeah, where everyone goes into worship. And he has to deliver his message right there. It's very public, very deliberate.
Okay. And the core message, at least at the start, it sounds a little straightforward. Amend your ways and your deeds, and I will let you live in this place.
Right.
Simple call to be better, maybe? But I get the feeling there's more under the surface here.
Oh, absolutely. See, the people were coming to the temple. They were doing the rituals, going through the motions of worship. But Jeremiah is saying, essentially, look, those rituals, they're empty if your daily lives are filled with injustice and wrongdoing. It really highlights this tendency, maybe a human one, to kind of mistake the symbols of faith for the real thing.
Like thinking just being near the sacred place is enough.
Exactly, that it somehow absolves you of personal responsibility. We still see echoes of that today, I think, in different ways.
And here's where it gets, really interesting to me.
Yeah.
They weren't just visiting the temple. They were putting all their trust in the building itself.
Yeah.
Almost like a guarantee, no matter what else they did. The text even points out what they were saying. This is the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, like chanting it.
It's like a mantra, yeah. A dangerous one. This belief that God's favor was automatic just because the temple, this physical structure, was in their city.
A get-out-of-jail-free card.
Kind of, and Jeremiah just forcefully rejects that whole idea, and then he lays out the specific reasons why their worship doesn't count.
And these aren't vague things, are they? He gets really specific.
They're very specific. Failing to practice justice, oppressing the vulnerable, the stranger, the orphan, the
classic list, yeah. Shedding innocent blood.
Right, and following other gods. It's a pretty damning picture of, societal failure.
It really shows a complete breakdown of their side of the agreement, their covenant with God. It wasn't just individual slip-ups, sounds like.
No, it was systemic. Widespread injustice, a fundamental turning away from their core identity. And to really hammer the point home, Jeremiah brings up a historical warning.
Shiloh. Right. Remind us, why is Shiloh such a big deal here?
Okay, so Shiloh was the main sanctuary for the Israelites before the temple in Jerusalem. It housed the Ark of the Covenant for a long time, but it was destroyed. Why? Because of the people's wickedness back then. So Jeremiah is basically saying, hey, remember Shiloh? Don't think for a second Jerusalem and this fancy temple are immune if you keep acting like this.
Wow. That's a heavy warning. And things are apparently so bad that God tells Jeremiah, don't even pray for these people.
Yeah.
It's intense. God's saying he won't listen.
It really underscores the severity, doesn't it? Like, their actions have pushed things past a certain point. His patience has run out because the disobedience is so deep. And then we get this glimpse into just how widespread the idol worship was. Verse 18, I think.
Right. It wasn't just a fringe group. It sounds like the whole family, the whole community was involved. Kids gathering wood, dads lighting fires, women baking cakes for this queen of heaven.
Everyone involved, pouring out drink offerings to other gods. And that question that follows is so sharp, so pointed. Are they provoking me, God asks? Or is it not themselves instead, to their own shame?
Yeah, that question really hits home. Their actions, aimed at maybe pleasing other gods, are ultimately just self-destructive.
Yeah.
Leading them straight to ruin.
Exactly. And it's not like they didn't know better. Jeremiah reminds them what God actually commanded way back during the Exodus.
Which wasn't just about, the burnt offerings and sacrifices on their own. It was about
obedience, real obedience. He quotes God, "Obey my voice, and I will be your God, and you will be my people, and you shall walk entirely in the way which I command you."
So it's about the relationship first, the commitment to living a certain way.
Precisely. The rituals were meant to express that obedience, not replace it. But Jeremiah says they have this long, stubborn history of ignoring God's commands, even though God kept sending prophets again and again to warn them.
And the result of just constantly refusing to listen, Jeremiah calls them a nation that's rejected obedience, rejected discipline, even rejected trustworthiness. That sounds like a total breakdown.
It really does. Spiritually, societally, the foundations are crumbling. And then we get this symbolic act Jeremiah is told to do, cutting off his hair.
That's verse 29, yeah. A public sign of being rejected, cast off, forsaking the generation of his wrath. It's a very visual public statement of what's coming.
A powerful image. And the description gets even more disturbing when we hear about the specific evil practice they'd adopted, building these high places, Topheth, in the valley of Ben Hinnom.
To burn their own children, sons and daughters, in the fire.
It's horrifying.
Just horrifying. And the text makes a point of saying God's words, which I did not command and it did not come into my mind. It highlights how completely perverse this was.
Utterly detestable. It shows just how far off track they'd gone. And as a direct result, Jeremiah prophesies that this place, Topheth, it's going to be renamed the Valley of the Slaughter.
Why? Because of the bodies.
Because of the sheer number of dead bodies that will fill it. They won't even be able to bury them all.
The picture is just grim,
Yeah.
visceral. Dead bodies left out for birds and animals.
Yeah.
And all the sounds of joy, weddings, celebrations gone.
Vanished from the cities, from the streets, leaving the land, just desolate, empty. It's a complete reversal of life, of blessing.
A total collapse, really.
Yeah.
Social order, divine favor, all gone. And that bleak picture really sets us up for chapter 8, which seems to dig even deeper into their sin, their treachery.
It does. Chapter 8 opens with another really shocking image, the desecration of the dead.
Right. Can you paint that picture for us? What happens?
Well, imagine the bones of everyone, important kings, leaders, priests, prophets, the Jerusalem VIPs being dug up from their graves.
Okay.
And then just scattered out in the open, under the sun, the moon, the stars, which ironically were the very things they'd started worshiping.
Wow. So it's like the ultimate humiliation, stripping away even their final resting place, their status.
Exactly. And the scale of the disaster coming is described as so huge that the survivors, the remnant, will actually prefer death over life.
That's incredibly despairing. Just utter hopelessness.
It speaks volumes about the level of suffering expected. And yet, even facing that, Jeremiah asks these rhetorical questions that just highlight their complete refusal to repent.
Your people fall and not get up? Does one turn away and not repent? Why then has this people, Jerusalem, turned away in continual apostasy? It's like he just can't understand their stubbornness.
Their turning away isn't a mistake, it's continual. They're actively holding on to deceit, refusing to come back. And then this observation, it's so sharp, no one repented of his wickedness, saying, "What have I done?"
Zero remorse, zero self-awareness. That's a powerful indictment. And the analogy that follows is so vivid.
Yeah, everyone just charges off in their own direction, like a horse charging blindly into battle.
Captures that recklessness perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Self-destructive, not thinking.
Totally out of control, driven by their own desires, ignoring all the warnings. And then Jeremiah uses this really striking contrast with the natural world.
Oh, right. The birds. He says even storks, turtle doves, swallows, cranes, they know their seasons, their migration times.
They have this instinct, this built-in sense of timing and order. But God's people, they do not know the judgment of the Lord.
Ouch. Even animals get it better than they do, in a way.
It really underlines their spiritual blindness, doesn't it? Their inability to see where their actions are leading. And yet, despite this ignorance, they're still claiming to be wise. They boast, "The law of the Lord is with us."
But Jeremiah calls them out, right? He talks about the lying pen of the scribes.
Exactly, suggesting that the very people in charge of the law have corrupted it, twisted its meaning.
So even the supposed source of wisdom has been compromised.
Right. Creating this false sense of security, stopping people from finding true wisdom because they've rejected God's actual word. And the consequences are laid out. Wives given to others, fields taken by new owners. Why? Because of greed and deceit, just running rampant?
From top to bottom, prophet to priest, everyone's involved.
Total systemic corruption. And just like we saw in chapter 7, there's this superficial attempt to smooth things over, saying peace, peace, when there is no peace.
Putting a bandage on a gaping wound.
Yeah, denying reality, telling comforting lies. And what's maybe most shocking is their complete lack of shame about it all. Jeremiah asks, were they ashamed? They were not ashamed at all, and they did not know how to be ashamed.
That's chilling. to lose even the capacity for shame over doing terrible things.
It shows a really deep level of moral decay, and the judgment is presented as absolutely certain they will fall. He uses that image of the harvest failing, no grapes, no figs, a total loss of blessing.
Yeah, both literal and metaphorical failure. And then we start to hear the people themselves realizing doom is coming.
Right. They start saying, why are we just sitting here? Let's go into the fortified cities and just die there. Because the Lord our God has doomed us.
Given us poisoned water to drink. They know it's judgment.
They get it now. They understand even their strongest walls won't save them from God's decision. And the terror ramps up with the news of the enemy approaching from Dan, up north.
The sound of the horses makes the whole land shake, consumes everything. It's a terrifying wave of destruction rolling towards them.
And then that image of God sending inescapable snakes.
Vipers, for which there is no charm, and they will bite you. Like there's no defense, no escape from this punishment.
It's a symbol of unavoidable suffering. But right in the middle of all this judgment, we get these glimpses of Jeremiah's own feelings.
Yeah, he cries out, "My sorrow is beyond healing. My heart is faint within me." He's not just some detached messenger, is he?
Not at all. He's deeply heartbroken by what's happening to his own people. And then you hear that cry, maybe from exile already, from far away.
Is the Lord not in Zion? Is her king not within her? It's this bewildered lament. Like, how could this happen if God was supposed to be there? But then the answer comes right back.
Why have they provoked me with their carved images, with foreign idols? It points right back to the cause, their own idolatry.
And the chapter ends on such a bleak note. Harvest is past, summer is over, and we are not saved. Just utter failure, no hope left.
And Jeremiah's grief just pours out again. I am broken over the brokenness of the daughter of my people. I mourn.
And those final anguished questions. Is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Like, isn't there any healing possible?
Why hasn't the health of my people been restored? It's this desperate plea, but the answer seems to be no, not now. Which leads us right into the intense grief of chapter 9.
Yeah, chapter 9 kicks off with Jeremiah just wishing he could cry forever, basically. Wishing his head was a spring, his eyes a fountain of tears, just to weep for everyone who's been killed.
It really drives home the human cost, doesn't it? He's not just delivering pronouncements, he feels the suffering deeply.
So much so that he almost wishes he could just run away, find some hut in the desert, and escape from his own people.
Because they're so treacherous, so unfaithful. He calls them adulterers, an assembly of treacherous people. Pretty strong language.
No kidding. And he describes their speech. Their tongues are like bows, bent to shoot lies, not truth. It's like honesty just doesn't exist anymore.
They go from evil to evil, and the root cause, they do not know me, says the Lord. That broken relationship, that lack of knowing God is behind everything.
And because of that, he warns people. Don't trust anyone, not your neighbor, not even your brother. Everyone betrays, everyone slanders.
Every brother utterly betrays. Every neighbor goes about as a slanderer. It sounds like the whole social fabric, all trust has just disintegrated.
And it's not just occasional lies. They've taught their tongues to lie. They weary themselves doing wrong. It's like a deeply ingrained habit, part of their very nature now.
A culture of deceit, really. And it actually stops them from being able to know God. So God's response, he says, he has to refine them, test them like metal.
Like in a furnace. Because things are so bad.
Yeah. He asks, what else can I do because of my people? It suggests these painful measures are the only option left.
And he comes back to that image of the tongue again. A deadly arrow. It speaks peace to your face, but secretly plots an ambush.
Chilling image of that hidden malice. And the question is obvious. Shall I not punish them for these things? The answer is clearly yes.
And the punishment sounds absolutely devastating. Weeping and wailing in the mountains, the pastures laid waste. Desolate.
Completely empty, no people passing through, no animals, even the birds and beasts have fled. Jerusalem itself, a heap of ruins, a place for jackals.
Wow. And then the question is asked, who's wise enough to understand why? Who can explain why the land is destroyed?
It's like an invitation to really get the lesson here. And the Lord gives the answer directly.
Because they abandoned his law, didn't listen, followed their own stubborn hearts.
And followed the Baals, the false gods, just like their ancestors taught them. That cycle of disobedience just kept repeating.
So the judgment is severe. Being fed wormwood, poisoned water, scattered among unknown nations, pursued by the sword, total uprooting, immense suffering.
And then this call for the mourning women, the professional wailers, to come and lament the devastation. It's a public acknowledgement of the scale of the disaster.
Death is pictured just walking into homes, cutting down children, young men in the streets.
And the image of the corpses left unburied like dung on the fields or cut grain left behind is brutal. Emphasizes the sheer number of dead, the lack of dignity.
Yeah, just stark. But even in the middle of all this grimness, there's that really important point about what not to boast in.
Right. The law says don't boast about wisdom or might, or riches.
What should they boast in them?
Let the one who boast of this, that he understands and knows me, knows that God is the one who exercises mercy, justice, and righteousness on earth.
So true value, true worth, isn't in worldly status, but in knowing God and reflecting his character.
Exactly. That's what truly matters. And the final point in this section is also really crucial. This judgment isn't going to be based on outward signs of religion.
It's coming for both the circumcised and the uncircumcised, Judah and its neighbors alike.
Yes, because the real issue isn't the physical act, it's being uncircumcised of heart. It drives home that outward rituals mean nothing without that inner transformation, that genuine faith and commitment to justice.
A powerful reminder, definitely. It's not about just showing up or having the right label.
Not at all. It's about the heart, about genuine obedience and living justly.
So as we wrap up this really intense deep dive into Jeremiah 7 through 9, it feels like some key things really stand out. We're definitely seeing this powerful, consistent message that, genuine obedience and actually practicing justice means so much more than just going through religious motions.
Absolutely. Ritual without righteousness is empty.
Right. And these chapters, they starkly illustrate what happens with societal decay, with widespread idolatry, and crucially, that lack of real remorse or self-reflection. The warnings are severe, the descriptions of desolation are grim, but they're presented as the direct result of the people's choices.
The consequences of their actions, yeah.
And maybe the biggest thing is that contrast between their outward religious show and their inner corruption. It's such a potent reminder that, a real connection with the divine has to be more than just formal. It needs our actions and beliefs to actually line up.
Well said. That superficial worship, relying on the temple like a good luck charm while ignoring injustice, the deep-seated deceit, it all led to their downfall. And that core message, truly knowing God, reflecting his justice and righteousness and how we live, that feels just as relevant today, doesn't it? For any society, any individual.
It really does. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? Considering these ancient warnings, what might be our modern-day temple gates? The things we might be relying on maybe subconsciously for security or a sense of being okay, without really grappling with the deeper ethical stuff.
That's a challenging question.
How do we make sure our actions, what people see, actually match up with what we say we value deep down? How do we avoid just sort of paying lip service to the important things without truly living them out? Definitely something to keep pondering long after we finish talking today.